One of my New Year's resolutions this year was to read 50 books, which is slightly less than a book a week. It's totally tangible. I also want to make more videos this year consistently, so I thought, why not combine the two? Instead of bringing you my monthly beauty favorites, I'm gonna bring you my monthly book favorites. Think of it like a book club, but significantly less smart and... First book I read this month! Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. I loved Gone Girl, so I really wanted to read something else by Gillian Flynn. I was not disappointed, but I will say this, Dark Places will take you dark places. I don't know what I was expecting from a book called Dark Places. Maybe I was just naive. What's so cool about Gillian Flynn's writing, she writes really real people. You find yourself rooting for people that you would never root for in any other book. I don't know, man, she makes you think. I like to think that the world is better than how Gillian Flynn portrays it, but maybe not. The second book that I read that significantly cheered me up after reading Dark Places is The Martian! If you like science fiction, you have to fucking read this book. I love this book so much. As opposed to Dark Places, which explores the depravity of humanity, The Martian explores the good that's in everyone and the overwhelming need to help fellow man, which is just something that I think everyone can get behind. Someone described it as Castaway set in space, which I think is a pretty good description. This book is weird because it makes me feel both smart and dumb at the same time. So there'll be whole pages of just describing chemical processes, which is really fascinating to me, and it's great because the author writes it in a way that it feels like you understand what he's doing. So you're like, yeah, totally. That complex chemical thing that you just did makes sense. That's what I would do. Yeah, I got you. But at the same time, while The Martian is fiction, it's also not, because there are astronauts all over the world doing stuff sort of like this every day who actually understand the chemical stuff in this book. And here I am, talking to a camera. So, thanks astronauts for being way smarter than me. And thank you Andy Weir for writing this really fucking cool book. Also, is this not the prettiest cover you have ever seen? Look at that. Look at how pretty that is. I could stare at this cover all day. It's so like, I just really like book covers. Third book I read, The Silkworm! I don't know why I said it like that, or why I'm waving it like this. Ow, that hurt. The Silkworm is the sequel. The Silkworm is the sequel to The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, but really J.K. Rowling. I love The Cuckoo's Calling, and I like The Silkworm even more. The character development definitely improved since Cuckoo's Calling. This is just a great sequel. It's everything that a sequel should be. Some freaky stuff, actually. It was kind of dark. I get very hung up on how do books portray humanity, because I don't want a book to be all doom and gloom, but I also don't want it to be superficial. I think J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter series, with this, she can get very dark, but she always brings you back to the heart of the story, which is the characters, which is what she does so well. Yeah, Silkworm. Thumbs up. Fourth book I read, Fortune's Pawn. As opposed to The Martian, which is on the very science-y end of science fiction, Fortune's Pawn is like very light science fiction. I actually didn't realize that this is supposed to be more like a romance set in space until after I bought it. I think I like this book so much because the protagonist is such a great female character. I just really like this for its portrayal of women in space. Doesn't get much better than that. And there's two more in this series. I don't know if it's a trilogy or if it's a whole series. I probably should have looked into that before I started filming this video. Kick-ass lady mercenary in space who falls in love, but also there's like aliens and spy shit and mystery, and it's cool. And the last book that I read this month, The Fifth wave. The fifth wave is weird because with most books, I'll have trouble getting into them in the beginning and then I'll end up really loving them by the end. Whereas the fifth wave, I loved it in the beginning. I loved it. I didn't want to put it down. I was telling everyone I know, oh my god, you have to read this. I'm not done it yet, but read it, read it. And by the end, I'm not so sure how I feel. The fifth wave is basically about an alien invasion, so it's kind of post-apocalyptic, dystopian. I wish I could explain it better without spoiling things, but I can't really. But basically, the main protagonist is this 17-year-old girl. She's just this really cool, complex character. You know, she went from being your typical high school sophomore, junior, I don't know, how old are you then? To like having to kill to survive and not being able to trust anyone. Very much reminded me of the Walking Dead game. If you've ever played the Walking Dead game, then you'll know what I mean. That paranoia that sets in post-apocalyptic settings, like having to do what you have to do, and that internal debate, like when do you lose your humanity? And this is a young adult novel, so I was really impressed that issues like humanity and morality and just when do you cross that line were being explored. And then we get to the middle and Cassie meets a boy and everything that was written about her in the first half went to shit. If I had to read the phrase chocolatey brown eyes one more time, I was gonna hurl this book across the room. So yeah, I don't know, I'm very upset with this book because it had so much potential and it was so good. And even in the middle and the end, there were still some parts that were really good, but goddamn, I could have done without the romance. I felt like Cassie's character was so cool and then it was just ruined. So I don't know, I would say read this, but be prepared for an unnecessary love triangle, like there always is. So those are the books that I read in January. Those are my book favorites. I would really like to continue doing this every month until the end of the year. Fingers crossed everything goes well. For February, I would really like to do romance novels because I never read romance. I try to avoid books where romance is like the main theme, but it's Valentine's Day month and I'm single and ready to sort of mingle with some books. So if you guys have any good romance recommendations, please feel free to share them below. Specifically, LGBT romance books would be really, really cool, or just whatever the fuck you want to see me talk about. Go for it. Also, if you would like to follow along with me and read the books while I'm reading the books, you can follow me on Goodreads and then see what I'm reading currently, and then at the end of the month, you'll, you know, be looking forward to what I have to say about the book that we both read. Maybe. I don't know. Link to my Goodreads account and all my other social media johns down below in the description. As always, I upload videos every Monday and Friday, so make sure you click subscribe so you don't miss anything. And you can check out my previous video where I did a Brandy Melville haul, like the fucking fashionista that I am. I will see you on Monday.